Two. Today we're going to talk about sleep, and I know it's almost bedtime for most of us. So let's start with the basics. Let's start with you, Milan. Do you even sleep? And if so, give us some of the details. Do you just go to bed when you're tired? Do you have a routine? Do you have like, oh, I want to sleep this many hours? Do you wake up at a specific time? Do you wake up whenever your girlfriend says get out of bed, bum? Basically, just tell us, how do you sleep?
So first of all, I don't sleep because I'm not an underperformer like you. No. I sleep around, I try to get around like 7.5 hours. And I think I started doing that like a very long time ago when I read somewhere that, you have like 1.5 hour sleep cycles. And then, or yeah, you had like an app and then you just fill in uh, what time you need to get up. And then it says, oh, you need to go to bed at this time. And I tried that and it kind of worked for me that I woke up, not like that you're waking up in a light sleep. So I think I
Okay, so can
just,
you can you briefly cover what those sleep cycles are?
uh, I mean, I think you have like 1.5 hour cycles in which you have whatever is happening over there. Man, that's a long time
Yeah. So
ago.
the basic version is you just have different stages of sleep. A lot of people have heard of REM sleep, so the rapid eye movement, which ironically is it's very deep sleep, but your brain is actually very active and you're dreaming and stuff, I believe. But moral of the story is you just have different phases in sleep. And if you're in a very deep stage and then you wake up because your alarm clock goes, you'll be super groggy because it's not natural to wake up in the middle of a deep sleep phase. Like from that phase would end and then you would go in a lighter sleep and then you wake up naturally, but you would never normally wake up in deep sleep. So basically, alarm clocks mess with that.
Mm.
And the idea of that app that you mentioned is that it knows like, oh, sleep stages are this long. So if you sleep now, then your fourth stage will be done at this time. So it's better to wake up than at this time. And sleeping, for example, 20 minutes longer might make you feel worse because you then wake up in deep sleep.
Wait, so then the idea is with these like 7.5 hour nights that you have, Milan, is like you wake up in a lighter phase of sleep, so you're not tired in the mornings, right? But then
Hmm.
can you do that like every day? Do you always wake up naturally, or do you still need an alarm?
Oh, I need an alarm for sure. But that's actually also funny. I don't have a regular alarm. I have like a wake up light. So it's
Yeah.
next to my head, and then I think I'm not sure how long it takes, but it like slowly, gets brighter. But in the end,
Does it make bird sounds?
yeah. So okay, so first the light goes up from like until very bright and takes like I think 20 minutes or something. But I think quite often I'm still asleep. So then the bird sounds start and I like chirping and then I wake up.
So I had one before as well until it broke. Um, the company has done some science on it, and there is some indication that even when you have your eyelids closed, uh, you can still detect a little bit of the light in your environment. So
Hmm.
as either sunlight or that light starts coming in, your body starts realizing, oh, it must be early day. It's time to wake up. Uh, that's just a very weak wake up sound. It's not like, oh, I detect a little bit more light. Boom. It's not the same as a real alarm, but it helps make the
Hmm.
transition a little bit more gradual. It's very similar to what you mentioned with the app. Both of these things will help you just, it doesn't help you get more out of your sleep. It just helps you not feel crappy when you wake up.
Yeah.
But so you don't use that app anymore, that sleep cycle.
No.
No.
No,
So
I
what do you
don't.
do? What do you do right now? Like when do you go to bed? When do you wake up? Or is it always different?
Yeah, it's slightly different, but so usually around 10, like I try to get ready for bed, and then I typically set the alarm at like 6:30.
Wow,
Um,
that's 8.5 hours, right?
yeah, but usually it takes some time before okay. So I have a really bad habit of like checking the news and whatever uh, just before I go to
Bitcoin
bed.
course, right?
No, like it's stupid. I know that you shouldn't have your phone with the whatever light right before you go to bed, but I don't know. Like for me, it doesn't affect me at all. I just get tired when I don't know, like reading the news or whatever,
That
Twitter.
reminds me to a bunch of things that I'm going to bring up later. But yeah, one thing to cover now is in sleep science, which we'll also cover in a bit, they make the distinction between actual sleep and time in bed. And often, when you ask people how much do you sleep, they actually mention their time in bed. So when they go to bed, but then either they're on their phone or maybe they have some quality time with their partner or whatever. Like maybe they actually just don't fall asleep straight away simply because they can't. So the time people actually sleep is usually a little bit less than than their bedtime, and people kind of forget that, even though it's kind of obvious. How about you, Floof? Do you sleep every now and then?
I sleep sometimes. Now, for me, I don't know. I feel like my sleeping habits change all the time. Currently, they're not at their best, but they could be worse. So basically, I try to get into bed at 10, but it depends on how social I am that day. Um, but yeah, no, in general, I try to like, so ideally at 9:30, I would start my bedtime routine. I would like take a shower, brush my teeth, calm down a little bit. Because if I don't have,
What are you doing? Meditation or what?
Oh my god.
Like
um,
to me, if I have to brush my teeth and take a shower, that's super stressful. It's not if I have to do all that in 30 minutes.
oh no, well, I mean, so basically the thing is, it's like, if I start that at 9:30, like I don't know, my shower is like 5 minutes. It's not very long. And then I brush my teeth for 2 minutes because that's what you have to do, of course. And then like I'll do like my like face routine, right? Like rub weird serums on it. And then
Who
yeah,
invited females to this show?
hey, Quinn does this too, I'm pretty sure. He,
What
he
are you
has good
talking
skin.
about? I don't use rituals.
No, but basically, so if I read a book, then that'll help me calm down before I go to bed. But if I'm like Milan and I'm on my phone, like reading nutrition tactics, then it gets hard.
You get excited.
So, in all seriousness, I don't understand people who take a shower before they go to bed. Like I need a shower or I want a shower to wake up because then I feel fresh the rest of the day. So I'm a morning. What about you, Milan and Quinn? When do you take a shower? Well, do you guys even shower? And if so, pre-sleep or
I
upon
don't think
wake?
Milan showers.
They're definitely not judged by smell.
Well, you just always smell like Paco Rabanne
That's why.
to cover the sweat smell. No, but actually funny because I think I had a small discussion about this with you, Ale, right? Because I was the same as you, Jorn. So I said, why would I shower before going to bed? Because in the morning, like, yeah, that's when I need a shower. And if you take a shower before to going to bed and it's like warm and you're a bit sweaty and then you wake up and you need to shower again. So yeah, I'm only morning shower.
Yeah. And Quinn?
It's interesting. I love my showers. I think everybody should shower before going to bed. Like I can't get into bed if I haven't showered and I feel nice and clean. But I think in general, my bedtime is probably a lot longer than most people. I like being in bed. And if I've gone into bed after a long day, especially if I haven't showered, then I just don't feel comfortable. So
But I have the same thing. I just have that in the morning. Like
yeah, but I completely get like showering to wake up, right? And then maybe you have like a colder shower. But if you have like a nice warm shower before bed, then it even gets you a little sleepy, in my opinion.
yeah.
But do none of you shower both in the morning and in
Of
the
course.
evening? Okay, good. Yeah.
My God, you guys, I'm gonna tell Luke about this. You guys have way too much free time.
Are you
Um,
shower shaming us?
yes. So my sleep is pretty straightforward. It was like for years, it was like exactly how I wanted it. COVID kind of messed it up. But I used to have for a very long time, and I'm basically now starting to get back into it. My routine was sleep at 10, and then I mean sleep at 10, wake up at 6, so that's 8 hours. Then basically first thing in the morning, do some exercise, then take a shower, efficient, and then start my work day, my university work day. So that was just 8 hours of sleep. Because I'm gonna make a bold statement here. No, I'm gonna discuss something else first. Has any of you heard of the term revenge bedtime procrastination?
No.
No.
Enlighten us.
So it means that most people, they just have a busy life, or at least they think they have a busy life, and doesn't really matter which stage of your life you're in. You usually wake up, you kind of have to rush, go to school, go to work, take care of your kids. Then you get home at 5, you eat dinner, make dinner, put the kids to bed. If you're a little bit younger, you're lucky, you still do some exercise maybe in the evening or something social. And then when you finally don't have any obligations anymore, it's like 10 o'clock in the evening. And it's the first time you really get to make your first choice. Like the rest of the day was already set in stone. So revenge bedtime procrastination means that because for the first time in a day you get to decide what you do, you're not going to go to sleep, because then that just means that your entire work week you didn't make any choice. Then you basically accept that the entire work week, your whole schedule is filled anyway, you're basically a slave. That's the psychology. So people, even though they know they should sleep 8 hours, they rather just watch Netflix for at least 1 hour at the expense of sleep, because at least it feels like they made the decision, no, I'm going to do something fun. So yeah, it's called revenge bedtime, because even though you know you should go to bed and that it's so smart and good for you, you want to feel freedom. So people want to be rebels, basically. And I think revenge is a good word for it, because that gets to my next point. I'm going to make a bold statement, and that is, I think that sleep is the most productive thing you can do. Nothing comes close. Not work, not training, not basically nothing. Why? Because almost any biological research that you can think of, there's pretty clear science that sleep just makes it better. Whether that's just your intelligence, whether it's your focus, whether it's your metabolism, any kind of health parameter. If you don't sleep enough, it's worse. So to simplify, there's hundreds of things going on, probably thousands of things, and on all of them you just score a little bit worse if you don't sleep optimal. And there's nothing you can do with that extra hour that is worth more than that collective effect. Now, don't get me wrong, if you have like the most important presentation of your life tomorrow morning, then spending 1 extra hour rehearsing that presentation might be worth it, because that presentation is so important. But still, net that hour of sleep would be more productive, because it just decreases 2% chance on this disease, the focus the rest of the day, etc., etc. So sometimes you make a deliberate choice. I don't sleep as much because I want to focus on one priority right now, but just net 1 hour of sleep, I think, is just so good for your body that nothing comes close to it. So I think everyone should aim for 8 hours of sleep. Again, it's not easy, because there's so many things you should do in a day that's hard to fit 8 hours in. But yeah, that's my statement. So I'm curious if anyone disagrees, because there's plenty of people who think like sleep is for lazy people, just get out of your bed, blah blah blah. What do you guys think?
I mean, I agree, but I do think that at some point you have enough. So probably like if you already sleep 8 or 9 hours, yeah, then is it really more productive to have like 10 hours? I don't think so. Don't think that will really make the difference.
That's a good point, but I honestly don't know anyone who can routinely sleep 10 hours. Like if you sleep 10 hours, that usually is because you were exhausted from like almost burned out, and then you sleep for 10 hours 3 days in a row, and after that it's going down anyway. However, there are some studies. This is all very difficult to control, but I've seen a study where they looked at injuries in athletes and then how many hours people sleep. And basically every hour that people sleep, injury rate is less, except going from 8 to 9 hours, it actually increased. Is there a good reason for that? I don't know. Maybe it's not a causal effect. So maybe if you're injured, then you can't go to work and therefore you just sleep in because you have nothing else to do. I don't know. But that could be an argument that maybe after 8 hours, okay, now now you squeezed all the good out of sleep. So, but I agree with you. I'm going to rephrase. I think sleeping up to 8 hours is the most productive thing you can do. After that, I'm not sure if if you get a positive return on investment, basically.
Yeah, actually, that was the question I wanted to ask as well, because I'm quite aware in literature anyway, they do say that, yeah, 7 to 9 hours is optimal. If you sleep less than 7, it's pretty bad for you. But now you guys are saying, well, if you sleep more than 8, then it might also be bad for you. And you did just bring up the point, yeah, maybe like it's not possible to sleep routinely 10 hours every day. But actually, during one summer vacation, I was just like, screw it, I have nothing to do. I'm just going to sleep as long as I want. And I think it really also comes down to routine and habit, because I swear, like for a good week, I slept 9.5 hours every day. And I didn't wake up feeling any better or any worse, but I was just like, well, now my day is super short and it's holiday, so this sucks. I'm going to go back to how it was before.
So you even have revenge sleep procrastination, even when you have nothing to do, you still want.
Exactly. But can it really
So
be
Quinn,
bad?
I'm just going to edit this as if you are saying that you did this during your internship. Then I'm going to send it to Luke, just so you know.
And then he still says, I did so well. I'm sure it'll be good.
But Quinn, so there's two things that come to mind when you say this. The first one is, I think with age, like they say that the older you grow, the less sleep that you actually need, and how kids, they need lots and lots of sleep. So I don't know which summer this was for you. If it was like a couple of years ago, maybe you were still a little kid.
You're like 18, right?
But the second thing that comes to mind is, I came across this study that they were trying to look at the relationship between all-cause mortality and sleep. So like looking at different hours or like sleep time that you get per night. And indeed, it did show that the lowest risk was at the 7 to 9 hours. But not only did sleeping less than 7 hours, was that related to a higher all-cause mortality, but also if you slept more than 9 hours. So I think, I can't tell you exactly why, but it does show that there's some
There's like
association there. Yeah.
So very quickly, all-cause mortality. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, all-cause mortality, a simple way to explain it is basically, if you have a higher rate of all-cause mortality, then it's the chance that you will die of any cause. So it's not just like cardiovascular disease or whatever. It's just kind of, if you take all the deaths for 1,000 people in a year, just from any death. So I guess it is difficult to explain.
Yeah.
But,
so like most people who are not familiar with the term is just think like, well, is sleeping more gonna increase the chance that lightning strikes you? no, but that's simply because lightning kills 1 in 10 million people. It's just you throw every possible cause on a heap, and then the very short version is just the chance that you die, and that just becomes more or less. But there, I have the same thing with that research, because long time ago when I was a student, I had a class about sleep, and we were just discussing it with the teacher, why that is. She was like, I have no clue why this is, but you see it pretty consistently in different studies. And it's the same thing, like, is it causal? Because again, like, I'm super jealous of everyone who can sleep 9 hours or more when you see it going up. And I can only imagine that people who routinely sleep more than 9 hours are people who might already have a disease and therefore don't go to work and can sleep 9 hours. Because I can't imagine being in the position to sleep more than 9 hours every day of the week, like on average more than 9 hours. So I'm like, maybe that entire group are just people who lay in the hospital who have nothing else to do and therefore they sleep more, right? Like I don't know, but I would like to see like a group of normal healthy people who sleep more than 9+ hours. And if then the relationship still holds, then I would be more concerned. Now it's just so weird to me if you can do that, I'm just not sure if it's a causal effect. Regardless, I don't recommend more than, 8, maybe 8.5 hours. More than that, again, I don't think there's, just time-wise, it's necessarily positive after that. But yes, there are some indications that it might be bad for various things. So it sounds like none of us really has trouble sleeping. We all sleep quite a bit, which is a shame, because my next question is, does anyone use or has used sleep aids? So something like melatonin, or you have all kinds of products that at least claim to help you sleep. Anyone, any experiences?
I think I've tried melatonin once in my life. I didn't notice anything. So then I didn't use it again.
Do you know what it's supposed to do? How it works?
Well, so melatonin, at least as far as my limited knowledge goes.
It's not that I ever given you a lecture about this, so no pressure.
It's not like I ever listened during lectures.
That's a good point.
But no, but melatonin, at least what I think is that when it becomes nighttime and you have like your sleepiness starts coming in, that's like your melatonin is being released, and that kind of is what makes you sleepy. Yeah. So when you take melatonin, the idea is that it'll induce this sleepy effect.
It's basically a hormone that your body naturally makes, and but you only make it when it's dark. So Milan mentioned earlier, I know I shouldn't be on my phone just before I go to bed, because even the light from cell phones has already shown to your body just sees it and then makes less melatonin, and therefore either you fall asleep less easily or your sleep quality can be lower. So Milan mentioned, like, I still fall asleep, but that doesn't mean that your sleep quality isn't lower. To be fair, I don't think that 5 minutes on your phone necessarily makes you sleep 12% worse, just making up numbers. So it's not like, oh my God, I completely ruined my sleep, but it might hurt a little bit. So it's a hormone that you normally only make when it's dark, exactly when you want it. So it just helps you with your biological clock. But you can also just take it as a supplement, which is what Ale referred to. And then, it should have the same function, should make you sleepy, so fall asleep better and potentially sleep deeper. But no such luck for you, Ale. Why did you buy it? Just for fun, or
so I didn't buy it. So basically, at the time, I had a group of friends who was really into partying, and then so they would
you're like,
party.
You take that pill, you take that pill. I'll just take this weak ass supplement. I'm wild.
No. But they would party all night, and then maybe 7 a.m, then they want to go to bed, but like the light is up, and then they're just like, oh, like, yeah, like we can't sleep, so we take melatonin. Mm-hmm. And then they gave me melatonin, so I was like, okay. But Yeah,
Yeah.
I try. Yeah.
To be fair, there is quite a bit of evidence that shows that melatonin works. It's just not. It's not like it's a nuclear bomb. Like I believe on average, this is by top of my by top of. I wanted to say a Dutch expression translated to English, and then my girlfriend always gives me a hard time, so I'm gonna say it correctly by heart. By heart, I believe that with 3 grams melatonin, you sleep on average 10 minutes earlier. Well, that's not going to make or break your night. I'm not entirely sure how much it would impact sleep quality, but 10 minutes of sleep is not going to make a huge difference. Um, Although, especially for poor sleepers, like my dad, for example, is a poor sleeper. Half the battle is when they lay awake and they're like, yeah, I have a feeling that I can't sleep. And then they stress themselves out. So those 10 minutes that you fall asleep earlier can actually be very useful for people with like almost sleep anxiety. But yeah, there is some evidence that melatonin can actually work. Where melatonin can also be very useful is when you're traveling to different time zones. Because again, it's like the hormone that kind of helps with your biological clock. So if you travel somewhere and your body thinks it's supposed to be night, but it's actually light, like with timing that melatonin strategically, you can help hint towards your body. Okay, now is when you should feel sleepy.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've actually used something else for sleep, like specifically during traveling, because I get anxiety on really long flights. Um, but that's like an anxiety medication that will then help me fall asleep. But I think the difference is that when I wake up the next, after like 8 hours, I'm really groggy.
Yeah.
So it's not really the best.
That's often what you hear with people on any kinds of sleep drugs. Like they help you fall asleep, but like it's not that the drugs know that in 8 hours it's morning time again. Okay, let's cover the opposite of sleep aids, stuff that keeps you up. So I'm thinking of ecstasy, which brings me to Quinn.
What?
Now, so the most famous one is of course caffeine. So I think it was last week we discussed with Gus about caffeine and coffee, and just very briefly, I mentioned that the first time I bought caffeine as a supplement, I decided to, for the first time ever, take a caffeine pill, or capsule, I should say, on a night. Like we decided, me and my roommate decided, let's pull an all-nighter for the exam tomorrow. I took a caffeine pill, and like 30 minutes later, I said, nah, I got this. I'm gonna go to bed, and I just fell asleep straight away. So my first experience with caffeine as something that's supposed to not make you feel tired and not like be detrimental with bed was, if you're tired enough, then it doesn't do that much. Like your biological drive is stronger than caffeine. Having said that, there is a lot of research that actually shows that caffeine is bad for sleep. Like, yes, it does make it harder to fall asleep. And even if you fall asleep, your total sleep time is shorter and the quality of sleep is shorter. So even though that was my experience, the falling asleep part was not an issue for me. In general, you want to avoid coffee and caffeine before bed. And the effect is quite long lasting actually. You want to avoid it for at least 6 hours, potentially, well, probably even more. How is your experience? Like a lot of people drink like a casual cup of coffee after dinner, which is probably not enough to have any real big negative effects. But any of you ever taken large doses of coffee or maybe Red Bull at a party and then regretted it later when it was bedtime?
Yeah. Personally, I don't know. I have a bit of a problem with caffeine, I think, because I love coffee and I love Coke, and both of which are super high in caffeine.
Dude, I was just thinking about a whole different Coke. I was like, never mind. Go on.
I don't have your experience with these things. Anyways. But as a kid, I would always drink Coke at night, right? Like at parties or just because I had a sweet tooth, and it never really kept me up. So maybe I've been conditioned not to be affected by it. But I also know Glenn, for instance, drinks all of his coffee at night. So either we're all like you and we're a small minority that's not affected by caffeine, or it is more like you said, and your biological need for sleep is actually greater or overpowers the effects of caffeine.
But also,
then again, I take it in the morning, and in the morning I'm like, wow, okay, I've had my cup of coffee, I'm ready for the day, and I'm super awake and alert. At least I think I am. But maybe again, that's like the placebo effect. I don't know.
but I think one thing that's just difficult with sleep in general, like you'll never know if with or without caffeine you would have slept 20 minutes longer, or if you sleep like 8% deeper, like you just wake up differently every day. It's just very difficult to say like, yeah, definitely slept 8% better, right? Like it's so subjective that I think it's like, I'm pretty convinced by the evidence that you should avoid coffee at night.
Do you know anything about, so obviously like caffeine is related to lower quality sleep and less total sleep, right? But do you know anything about whether it happens in the falling asleep process throughout or at the end? Because I know with myself that I'm actually very sensitive to the effects of caffeine. And if I have caffeine, either too much, even if it's in the morning, or just a little bit later in the afternoon, I struggle falling asleep. So
Yeah. No, I don't know. The short question is I don't know, but what I do know is something that we discussed last week with Gus, is that caffeine is like a crazy thing where people's sensitivity is all over the place. Like I once saw a paper that showed that caffeine sensitivity can be a factor 10 different, which means that if you have a cup of coffee, that might feel for someone else as 10 cups of coffee. Like that's insane. So often we talk about personalized nutrition and everyone is different, and usually we're very similar, but caffeine sensitivity seems to be something that's quite drastically where we're all pretty unique. So yeah, it is possible that if you just have a little bit of caffeine in the morning that you suffer at night. So do you drink coffee then at all, or?
yeah, I mean, I do drink coffee almost every single day, but I just know that the way that it affects me is quite different than other people. Like, I mean, I can have, if I have one or two coffees in the morning, so before 10, then I have no issues. But if I have a coffee maybe anytime after one, then I'll already start, I, the effects will be there at night. Or if I take pre-workout in the morning, then I'm just it's just not okay. So
You
yeah.
take pre-workout?
Well, as
Yeah,
long as
well, when I
you
did.
as long as you hit a PR, like.
That's true.
So, Milan, we let's dive a little bit into the sleep science now. We've made an infographic about sleep and cognition. Do you remember it with all the different doses of sleep?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think
can you summarize it?
yeah, I think it was the study where they had participants sleep either 9, 7, 5, maybe even lower,
Yeah.
one
So it
level.
was
3.
the highest was 8.5, and then the lowest was.
Ah,
Oh, no, it was actually was 9, and the lowest was 3. So it's 3, 5, 7, 9.
yeah, and I think they then did like daily cognitive function tests. And I think the most interesting from that study was that even 7 hours was like suboptimal. They were not. I think they slowly like went down a bit, and then like the 9 hours or 8.5, they had like yeah from baseline they went even up a bit. So probably the 8.5 was a bit higher than they would habitually sleep. But yeah, that's pretty crazy that you always have like the recommendation from 7 to 9 hours, but yeah, there's already a difference between 7 or 9 hours.
Yeah. That study was like the study that kind of convinced me that sleep was a real big deal, because most studies are always like sleep 8 hours versus not sleeping at all or sleeping 3 hours. And I was like, well, why would you ever want to do that, right? But that was a study with like very nice doses, and then still you saw that 7 was, well, far from optimal. However, it is important to say that 3 hours obviously sucks. Then going from 3 to 5, you get like a big increase in, let's call it overall performance. So your brain works better, your metabolism, all kinds of health effects. Going from 5 to 7, again, quite a big jump, but a little bit smaller. And then from 7 to 9, it's not like, oh my God, now my IQ doubles. It's not a major effect. But at the same time, that's also the danger. That's why some people say like, oh, 7 hours is all I need. Yeah, sure, you're definitely performing, you're sharp, but it's just not your optimal. But if you always sleep 7 hours, you don't realize what suboptimal is, right? Because again, who sleeps 9 hours? Who has that luxury? But again, I don't necessarily think that you should aim for 9, but I would definitely try to aim for 8. So yeah, that study really convinced me that sleep is important. Then let's jump to one of the more extreme studies that I mentioned, where they look at quite a lot of sleep versus clearly suboptimal. I don't know if anyone of you remembers it, but a study where 2 groups went on a diet, and one group spent 8.5 hours in bed, and the other group is something like 5 hours in bed. So quite a big difference. Like if you only spend 5 hours in bed, that's clearly suboptimal. But I still like the study because the difference between the groups was so big. It was not like, oh, one group had 2% better. No, the changes on body composition were used. So anyone can summarize that study?
I think probably only me.
Okay, go ahead. Wait. Do we now catch Floof and Quinn that they don't know all our infographics by heart?
Hey, I could tell you what's on the infographic. I just didn't read the study too well.
Oh, that's good enough. But let's go ahead, Milan.
No, I mean it was some time ago.
So do we now catch that no one here has a decent memory because they don't sleep enough?
Yeah.
No, I think it was like a 2-week protocol. Maybe even like for sure it was supervised sleeping. I think they were even like they were woken up when they
were woke. Yes.
No, but I mean by a researcher woke them up when they were sleeping when they shouldn't.
But they were also woke.
Well, yes.
They done waked up.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, I think.
But so what did they measure, and then what did they find?
Yeah, I think they had. Yeah, I don't remember how exactly they measured body composition, but I do remember they had at least a 2-compartment model, so just fat mass and fat-free mass. So probably DEXA, I think, but never mind. I'm pretty sure that so they had like a diet, and both groups lost the same amount of weight, but the short sleep group, I think they like double of they lost like twice as much lean mass than the long sleep group, and like half of the fat mass. Wait, am I saying that correctly?
No. It's
lost
double the lean mass. And
okay. Yeah. So they lost way more fat mass, and they lost less lean mass.
The ones who slept more
the
lost.
Long sleep.
Yeah. So in this one, like I think another detail that's good to say was that they also controlled like the calorie intake as well. Like I think they were both at a 10% deficit.
So
they also
the
control
very
like, the composition?
simple version is subjects were basically locked at the university. So they had to go sleep when the researcher said sleep. They had to wake up when the researcher said wake up. They had to eat exactly what was given while the researchers were looking. So there's no cheating in this study. It's not like thank you for participating for the next 2 weeks or 2 months, whatever, how long a study is. Can you please stick to this diet and this sleep schedule? No, they were supervised everything that they did. That is very expensive, very costs a lot of time for the researchers, but it is of course the highest quality because there's no guesswork more involved. And under these highly controlled conditions, you basically see that if you sleep more, you still lose the same amount of weight on a diet. It's just what you lose is totally different. So you maintain your muscle mass essentially much better, and you lose a lot more fat mass. So your calorie deficit will still determine how much you lose, but sleep has just an enormous impact on what you lose, whether that's muscle tissue or fat mass.
Quinn, what did you want to say before Jorn interrupted you rudely for the second time?
Wait, let me get this straight. Whose show is this? Whose last episode is this, Milan? Okay, go on, Quinn.
No,
I thought this wasn't supposed to be a lecture, but a podcast.
Yeah, how long were we supposed to speak?
So, did you know that sleep deficiency actually makes you rude? There's actual research on that.
Yeah, no, I totally believe that because I'm very rude when I haven't slept.
So is Teresa.
Okay,
anyways.
Quinn, hit us.
I was wondering if the diets were controlled for what they were eating, because if I recall correctly from your infographic, one of the limitations of the study was that they didn't control for what they were choosing to eat. So maybe they had like the same caloric intake, but those that were sleeping less chose to eat like more chips or more bread, and those who were sleeping more chose to eat more protein.
No, so like how much and what they ate was all prescribed by the researcher. So that was completely
everything is controlled.
Yeah, so that's like in one hand that's perfect from a research perspective, but it's still not perfect because you can't have perfection, because you need to check every possible scenario. So that study shows if you eat exactly the same thing, sleep has a drastic impact on body composition. However, other studies have shown that if you sleep less, that determines how much and what you eat. So if you sleep less, you actually see that people get more craving for energy-dense products, which generally are unhealthy products. So you want chocolate and ice cream and stuff like that. That study that we just discussed, where everything was prescribed, it wouldn't see that effect, right? Because everything was what was given to the subjects. So you need one study to show if you eat exactly the same thing, sleep will kind of determine what happens to these nutrients. Do they go to your muscle or to your fat? But then you need a different kind of study where you just say, eat whatever you want to see what the influence of sleep deficiency is on your food choices.
Yeah.
So, so that's often what you hear when people criticize studies, is that like, well, this study should have been like this. But you need both studies. They're just two different things. One is how does sleep deficiency impact your food choices? And the other one is if you eat exactly the same, how does sleep change the metabolism of those nutrients?
Yeah.
Maybe one more interesting thing to cover that's relevant for quite a few people, and it kind of, hopefully it was for me, and that's shift work. Has any of you ever had any job that was like shift work related?
For me, like, so when you mean shift work, you mean like when you're working at night, right?
Yeah, basically after midnight, like you definitely want to sleep, but
yeah, for me, I never had like proper shift work, but the one that went the latest, I would end work at 1 p.m., like 1 a.m. So basically middle of the night.
Yeah, and then you still have to go home, I guess.
And then I still had to go home and then like shower so that I get all the ice cream off of me. That's when I worked at an ice cream salon.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. I had to do that for my internship.
It was not nice.
So, did you get paid extra for that, like for late hours? No.
Nope.
So because Quinn just mentioned his internship, so in our research group we sometimes do pre-sleep studies where we give subjects nutrients just before they go to bed, and then throughout the night while the subjects are asleep, we take like blood samples and stuff and just measure stuff in their metabolism. But that requires us to be awake the whole night and check on the subject, take blood samples, and Quinn and I did that, for example. That's was why I said, like, I hope my shift work is over and I don't do these studies again. But the reason, well, okay, a couple of things. My first study that I ever did was a sleep study. And I was like, yay, I'm going to earn so much money, because for sure you earn extra money when you don't work regular hours. I just thought that those were the rules. Well, then I realized that very quickly that PhDs work a little bit different. So that was disappointment one. But yeah, so over the last couple of years, I've had quite a lot of nights where I just basically worked till like 8 the next morning, probably even longer, and then still have to go home. And unfortunately, during all those studies, especially during that first study, we did it luckily with several people together. But every time during the night, we were looking up studies on how bad shift work was, just to feel a bit pity with ourselves. And that's where I read like these studies that if you don't sleep enough, you become rude. Like all these random facts, we learned it back then. But so yes, I've done quite a few nights, but compared to, for example, nurses who really regularly do it, that's a whole nother level, of course. But shift work is really, really unhealthy. It's incredible if you look in the science of shift workers. Just on average, their all-cause mortality is higher. They just are way more likely to get all kinds of metabolic diseases. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for everyone who does it, and I think they should be paid more, because it's just, one, it's tough, but two, even if somehow you can design your life that you can deal with it pretty well, it's just unhealthy. So any nurses or any like guards who work the whole night, props to you. It's not the nicest job, but thank you, because we need people at night. But for everyone for who health is a priority, try to avoid shift work. It's really, really bad. Is there anything else about sleep we want to cover? Any fun studies you read? Any fun stories? What's the longest any one of you has been awake? Just
5 days.
for real?
Yeah.
What?
No.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was really, really awful. And it wasn't by choice. It was, I don't know, like I struggled a lot with anxiety in the past, and anxiety really like impaired my ability to fall asleep. So I remember I went 5 days without sleeping. So at night I would just like be like laying there, like, when will the sleep come?
But like, I'm not sure about this, but I think like on average you can last like 7 days without sleep before you get like permanent damage, and not a whole lot longer than that before you actually die.
Yeah, so I'm actually supposed to be way smarter than I am now. It's just those 5 days really messed me up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then just the 6th day, it just happened, or did you get like pills then just because
Yeah, I think at that point I just managed to fall asleep. And I think also the source of my anxiety had changed.
Okay.
So then I finally was able to sleep, but it wasn't great.
Wow, that's crazy, because you have quite a bit of research that after like one night already cognitive performance is like 12% down, and then after 2 nights it's like 82%. Like it goes super, super fast. And this weekend I watched the movie Awake. Any one of you know it? Like, I know you're all surprised that I watch movies, but my girlfriend makes me. But it's basically a movie. I won't spoil it for everyone, but it's a movie about all of a sudden people can't fall asleep anymore. And then, well, what happens to the world if we can't sleep? So
Is it a comedy or a horror?
no, it's kind of like an, I don't know, action thriller, something like that.
All right.
So I don't know the movie, but it does remind me of like what you say, that after like I think like 1.5 weeks or 2 weeks, like you will probably just die. And I think there are also like some rat studies that show that they keep them awake with some kind of gas or whatever, and then like they go absolutely crazy, and at some point they all die.
Yeah.
I think within two
Wow.
weeks.
So in like the lecture I mentioned about sleep, I also have a slide of a news article where a man died from not sleeping because he just forced himself to stay awake during the World Cup.
Oh
So
my
it's just a
gosh.
guy who stayed awake for like I don't know how many days, maybe 6 days or something in a row, and then he apparently died. So that's crazy. Like obviously in humans, you're not gonna do experiments to test how long can humans stay awake without dying? But like Milan says, in animal models, it has been done, and it's very simple. You need sleep, and what they also often say is, if you didn't need sleep, it would be the biggest failure of evolution. Like, why would 1/3 of your life be unconscious in the most vulnerable position there is if it wasn't somehow good for you?
Yeah, true. Yeah, because you're right about vulnerability as well. It's not only that you're just being unproductive, you're also just like
Yeah,
you,
like obviously nowadays you're usually quite protected in your home, but
but from an
no,
evolutionary
exactly.
perspective,
Yeah,
like it's amazing we haven't just all been eaten by lions and tigers during those 8 hours,
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe for the athletes watching, how bad is a small sleep deficiency? And so let's say you go party with friends and you just have like a 4 or 5 hours sleep, but you still want to train the next day because that's just your normal routine. Is it a complete waste? No. For performance, it's pretty clear that missing a couple hours of sleep for one day doesn't have much impact. And the less technical your activity is, the less that it matters. So I know now all the powerlifters are going to be offended, but if you do something like a deadlift, which relatively is not a super skillful thing, it has almost no impact. But if you do something like skill sports like soccer, there you see more of an effect. Already a couple hours of sleep inhibit your performance a little bit. It's not drastic, but there you see it. While with like a strength test, you don't really see it. But multiple days of suboptimal sleep will definitely hurt your performance. And you also see that just a couple days of less sleep will also reduce your muscle protein synthesis, which, to keep it simple, is just how well you're either growing or adapting to training. So again, ideally as an athlete, you would get 8 hours of sleep. And it gets back to what we discussed in the beginning, just up to 8 hours. It's pretty clear that every hour is just so useful for just about anything. I think that's all I can talk about. I don't know if anyone else has a nice story. Otherwise, it's time. Yeah, maybe anyone has a bedtime story?
Gwen, it's your time to shine.
It's my time to sleep. Get those 9.5 hours.
I mean, it's only 30 minutes until Alice's nighttime routine starts.
Yeah, before I smear all those things on my face for beauty.
We should just let Quinn do an IQ test now and then force him to do another week of 9.5 and then see if he can actually increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
So any suggestions for our next podcast? Well, first of all, who are we going to replace Milan with until he learns to behave? And then any suggestions for next week's topic?
I was interrupting people. No suggestion.
Yeah, I have to think about that one.
Wow, you guys sound super passionate about a lot of topics.
We're just really sleepy right now.
Okay, I'll I'll let you go. Good night, everyone. And well, I'll see you tomorrow at work.
Yeah, see you there.
Ciao, guys.
Good night.
See you guys.
See ya.